Welcome back, deep divers. Today, we're taking on one of the classics, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein.
Oh, an excellent choice.
I know, right? And get this, we're focusing on Robert Walton and the creature's perspectives.
Fascinating. Two sides of the same, well, maybe not coin, but definitely the same story.
Exactly. We're going to really get into the nitty-gritty of exploration and ambition.
The nature of good and evil, for sure.
Definitely. Plus, all that, unchecked scientific pursuit stuff.
A timeless theme. It's amazing how Shelley's work still resonates today, like she was peering into the future.
Totally. And with these two narratives, it's like she's showing us reflections of ourselves.
Our desires, our fears, that potential for both creation and destruction.
Okay, so first up, Walton. This guy, he is obsessed with reaching the North Pole.
Driven.
Yeah, driven by this burning desire for discovery.
It's not just about planting a flag, though.
Right.
It's deeper than that.
Right. It's like he's totally captivated by this idea of the Arctic as,
pristine.
Exactly. And it's almost like he's ignoring the whole frozen wasteland aspect.
That romanticized vision is crucial. It highlights that human fascination with the unknown, that desire to push beyond limits.
He's risking everything, though, literally everything. His life, his crew's lives, all for this idea of uncovering
a grand secret.
Yes, some grand secret. It really makes you wonder what drives people to such extremes.
It reflects the spirit of Shelley's time, too. The rise of modern science, the questioning of old beliefs, that hunger for knowledge.
But it's like he's blinded by this ambition, right? Ignoring the cost.
And that brings us to Victor Frankenstein. A man consumed by a different kind of ambition, wouldn't you say?
Totally. I mean, this is a guy who wants to conquer death itself.
From childhood, he was fascinated by those alchemists, trying to understand the secrets of life and creation.
And for listeners who, might not be familiar, natural philosophy basically means...
study of the physical world, but before modern science really took shape.
Right. So it's this mix of observation, experimentation, and a touch of mysticism.
Exactly. And Victor represents this shift, you see, from that alchemical tradition to a more modern scientific approach.
So he gets super into chemistry, anatomy, all that stuff.
Trying to understand the mechanisms of life at its core.
But there's this darkness to his pursuit, right? It's all very secretive.
Yes, there's an isolation there, a separation from the collaborative spirit of true scientific inquiry.
And then, bam, he creates the creature.
From disparate parts. It's like a patchwork of life, in a way.
Right, and it's not at all what he pictured. I mean, he wanted to create beauty, perfection. Instead, this grotesque figure emerges.
Horrifying him. The creature's appearance, the yellow skin, the shrunken complexion, the lifeless eyes, it's all a stark contrast to what he intended.
It's like he's playing God, but the result is,
far from divine.
Exactly. And then, get this, he abandons the creature.
Leaving it to fend for itself. A truly monstrous act in its own right.
I know. It's like he opens this Pandora's box and then just runs away.
And that act sets the stage for the tragedy that unfolds.
So we go from Victor's perspective to the creatures, and wow, what a shift.
We're suddenly seeing the world through the eyes of this abandoned being struggling to survive.
Can you imagine? Thrust into this world totally alone with no guidebook.
No understanding of who he is, why he's here.
Right. The isolation, the confusion, it's heartbreaking.
But despite all of that, he shows this remarkable capacity for learning.
He's like a sponge absorbing everything.
Observing, piecing together language, emotions, all of it.
It really makes you think about what it means to learn, to form an identity.
The creature's journey forces us to confront those very questions.
So he finds the DeLacy family and secretly observes them.
Drawn to their kindness, their connection. He craves that for himself.
He even helps them out, chopping wood, that kind of thing.
Trying to contribute to earn a place among them.
Which, makes what happens next even more tragic.
Because his desire for connection grows, and he decides to reveal himself.
Big mistake.
He believes they'll see past his appearance, embrace him for the gentle being he longs to be.
But they don't.
They react with terror, violence.
It's devastating. It's like confirmation that he's a monster,
And that rejection fuels a rage, a bitterness that has serious consequences.
And to make matters worse, he finds Victor's journal, which details
his creation, his horror at what he created.
Talk about a gut punch. To discover you were an experiment gone wrong.
It poisons his spirit, twists his desire for connection into a need for revenge.
So we've got Walton, obsessed with knowledge, risking everything for greatness.
Yeah.
And the creature, abandoned, desperately seeking acceptance.
Two sides of the same coin. Two powerful forces on a collision course.
It's gonna be a wild ride. And we're just getting started.
Picking up where we left off with the creature's, his downward spiral. I think it's worth circling back to Walton for a sec.
Okay, yeah. Walton's Arctic obsession. But how does that tie into, everything else going on?
It might seem like a side story, but trust me, it's important. Remember what drives Walton. It's not just about reaching the North Pole.
Right. He's searching for something bigger, like some groundbreaking discovery.
Exactly. He wants to uncover a secret that will, change the world.
He even compares it to, what was it? The secret of the magnet, right?
Exactly. Something that back then was this huge mystery with, tons of scientific potential.
So it's not just personal glory he's after?
No, it's this deep-seated belief that his mission is, vitally important.
So he's like a pioneer then, pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
And that's where it gets, interesting.
Yeah.
Because you see that same drive, that same ambition in Victor.
True. But Victor's ambition takes a darker turn.
You remember how Victor talks about those old alchemists? He was fascinated by them.
Oh, yeah. Trying to crack the code of life itself.
He was always searching for a way to, transcend those limitations.
To conquer death.
Exactly. And that's where his focus shifts, right? From alchemy to a more...
modern scientific approach.
Yeah. He dives deep into chemistry, anatomy, all that.
Dissecting bodies, pushing the limits of what was, acceptable back then.
It was a time of massive change in the scientific world, for sure.
But even with this, new scientific method, there's still this,
hubris.
Yes. Hubris. He's so secretive, so isolated.
It's like that lack of accountability fuels his obsession.
And that obsession leads to the creature, right? That's
a far cry from what he imagined.
He wanted perfection, but instead he gets
a grotesque figure. And the really interesting thing is Shelley doesn't give us all the details of the creation.
Right. It's all very vague and kind of horrifying.
And then, of course, Victor's reaction is to just...
abandon the creature.
It's a pivotal moment that reveals his moral failing.
He creates life, but he doesn't want to take care of it.
It's that lack of responsibility that sets the stage for everything that follows.
And then we shift to the creature's point of view.
Imagine being thrust into this world, completely alone, with no understanding of who you are.
It's got to be terrifying and confusing.
And yet, despite all that, he learns. He adapts.
He's observant, watching, listening, picking things up.
He figures out language, emotions, all through observation.
It's amazing how he manages to piece it all together.
The DeLacy family plays a big part in that.
Right. He watches them, learns from them.
He sees their kindness, their connection, and he wants that so badly for himself.
He even tries to, help them out secretly, chopping wood, stuff like that.
He's trying to earn his place, to prove he's worthy of their
love, acceptance.
Both. And it leads him to make that, that fateful decision.
To reveal himself.
Thinking that if they get to know him, really know him, they'll see past his appearance.
But of course,
they reject him.
Violently. It's like all his hope, everything he's been building towards, just shatters.
And that rejection is what really pushes him towards revenge.
He's been abandoned by his creator, rejected by society.
He's in pain, and he wants to inflict that pain on others.
And then, on top of all that, he finds Victor's journal.
And learns the truth about his creation.
The horror Victor felt when he saw him.
It's a devastating blow for the creature.
It confirms what he's starting to suspect, that he's nothing more than...
a failed experiment.
A monster. And that knowledge, it twists him even further.
So now we have the creature, fueled by rage and rejection, seeking revenge.
And Victor, he's facing the consequences of his actions.
It's a clash of titans. Creator versus creation.
And it's only going to get more intense from here. All right, deep divers, we're back and ready to finish our exploration of Frankenstein. Last time, we left off with the creature making a pretty, intense demand.
He wants Victor to create a companion for him.
Right. Another creature. Can you imagine?
It puts Victor in a really tough spot. It's a moral dilemma, to say the least.
Does he risk creating another being and, potentially unleashing even more chaos?
Or does he condemn his first creation to a life of complete isolation?
It's like he's forced to choose between two terrible options.
And it really forces him to confront his own responsibility as a creator.
He can't just ignore what he's done anymore.
Exactly. And remember, he's not just worried about this one creature now.
He's thinking about the potential consequences, right?
He's imagining these two creatures, maybe even more powerful than the first, reproducing, multiplying.
Like creating a whole new race of beings.
And he's terrified of what that could mean for humanity.
So he's like really wrestling with his conscience here.
But additionally, he agrees. He gives in to the creature's demand.
Out of fear.
Partially, he's afraid of what the creature might do if he refuses.
Right. But there's also this sense of obligation.
He feels responsible in a way for the being he's brought into the world.
Okay, that makes sense. So he starts working on this female creature.
But then he changes his mind. He destroys it before it's finished.
What? Why?
Because he realizes the magnitude of what he's doing. He's creating another life, another soul.
And he's afraid of what that might mean.
He sees the potential for destruction, for even more suffering.
So he decides he can't go through with it.
It's a noble decision, in a way, but it also has devastating consequences.
Because the creature, he's not going to be happy about this.
He sees it as a betrayal.
And he wants revenge.
He lashes out at Victor, targeting those closest to him.
He kills Clerval, Victor's friend.
And then on Victor's wedding night, he kills Elizabeth.
Oh man, that's just brutal.
It's a horrific reminder of the power of rage, of the consequences of Victor's actions.
He wanted to control life and death, but in the end, he brought death and destruction to his own doorstep.
And those deaths, they're so senseless, so tragic.
It's all a result of Victor's ambition, his inability to take responsibility.
And from that point on, Victor is consumed by guilt and grief.
He becomes obsessed with hunting down the creature, seeking revenge.
But it's a futile quest, a downward spiral that ultimately leads to his own death.
Yeah. Walton describes him as like a shell of his former self.
Haunted by guilt, driven by this need to destroy his creation.
And before he dies, he begs Walton to finish what he started.
To kill the creature, to end the cycle of violence.
But Walton, he's seen the destruction firsthand, right? He doesn't want any part in it.
He makes a conscious choice to break free from that cycle of revenge.
And then the creature appears in Walton's cabin.
Mourning over Victor's body.
Wait, really? He's like sad.
It's a complex moment. He's not just a monster. He's capable of feeling grief, remorse.
But he also says, "There is my last victim," which is pretty chilling.
It's a reminder that even in his sorrow, he's still dangerous.
So what happens to him?
He disappears into the Arctic wilderness, seeking an end to his own suffering.
It's a haunting ending to a really powerful story.
Frankenstein forces us to confront so many complex ideas.
Ambition, creation, responsibility.
It's a story that stays with you long after you finish reading it.
And on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into Frankenstein. Thanks for joining us as we explored this classic tale of ambition gone wrong and the consequences of playing God. We'll see you next time for another deep dive into a new and exciting topic.